So I'm going to get started and make the sauce for the coleslaw. And I use Trader Joe's goat yogurt. I use goat yogurt because I can't have anything from a cow. So this is an option for you. If you don't like goat milk or goat yogurt because of that more pungent smell, then you can use sheep yogurt or you can use cow yogurt. I like this one. It's got a lot of fat in it, so it keeps the sauce very thick. If you use a non-fat yogurt, such as this one, I've used Capretta goat yogurt before, and this is a non-fat one, your sauce will be more liquidy because as your cabbage is sitting in its container, it will begin to ferment. The sugars in the cabbage are going to begin to ferment with the bacteria in your yogurt, and it's going to create lactic acid runoff, and that's going to make your sauce a little bit runnier. So a higher fat content yogurt is going to give you a different result. It's also going to be less acidic, so it's going to have a little bit of a creamier taste to it. And depending on the yogurt, you're going to have different types of bacteria in them, and the different types of bacteria are going to create a different result as your coleslaw sits in the refrigerator. This one, for example, I noticed after about 3, 4, 5 days, the longer it sat, the more peppery it got, as in pepper, as in black pepper, and there was none in it. And this is a 1 liter container. It's a 2-pound container of yogurt. And I'm also going to add a little bit of my own yogurt in here. This is going to create a more active culture because my yogurt tends to have a lot more active cultures in it than the store-bought. So I'm going to add a little bit in here. You don't have to do this. I'm just going to do it. So I don't add a whole bunch. There's maybe half a cup in here. And I'm going to use about 8 to 10 dates. And I use Medjool Dates because they're softer and they're slightly bigger. And this recipe, and I cut them up because it's easier to grind them down when I blend it. This recipe for this coleslaw is extremely high in potassium. Yogurt has an enormous amount of potassium in it, and so do dates. And the dates are not going to be sweet enough to really make this a sweet coleslaw. This might come as a surprise to some of you, but I actually add stevia to my coleslaw. And so I'm putting in about 3 droppers full of this. And whenever I'm using, I also use Now Better Stevia. The bottle broke, so I had to put it into a different dropper bottle. But stevia is not all the same, so you want to investigate. Some of them are very harsh. The dry powder stevia is very different from a glycerite stevia, but I like the glycerite organic stevia by Now. And whenever I'm using stevia, I try to add a little bit of real sugar. There's something about adding a tiny bit of sugar that sweetens it enough to mask the stevia. And stevia is also a little bit bitter, which is also why the salt can be helpful, because salt will neutralize a bitter taste to a certain degree. So I'm not going to use a whole bunch, but this is coconut sugar. It's organic coconut sugar. And I've added probably about a tablespoon, not a whole lot, but this will soften it up. I'm also going to add some salt to my sauce. It tends to balance out the sweetness a little bit and adds something to the quality of the end product. I can't exactly define it in words, but I always add a little bit of salt and I grind it in here. I'm going to blend this. I use an immersion blender. If you watch my videos, you'll know that I don't like dishes. I don't like cleanup time, so I try to keep things as simple as possible. So I use an immersion blender for this. Today I bought an organic head of cabbage. It's very big. It was on sale, but you don't need to buy cabbage that's organic. Whether your cabbage is organic or inorganic, it's still relatively safe. So depending on the price, there are certain vegetables that I will buy organic, some of them I won't. Some vegetables that need to be organic, and fruits I will not eat them if they aren't organic. But cabbage is one that, regardless of what it is, you're going to be pretty safe with it. I've already washed it off, and I'm going to cut out some of the bigger veins on it because the yogurt is going to culture, but some of these big veins are just a little bit too much. You can use a food processor. I don't do that because I have found that the end result is better when I have hand cut the cabbage. So I spend the extra 10 or 15 minutes to cut my cabbage because the end result is much better. The irregularity of the cut tends to give it a better quality. My suggestion for buying prepackaged cut coleslaw cabbage, I wouldn't ever do that. But if you want to, you can try it, because one day I tried it and it was so bad that I never did it again, and it enabled me to understand how valuable it is to buy the whole produce and the whole vegetable and to spend the extra 20-30 minutes in the kitchen cutting and preparing it, because the outcome is entirely related. So if you want to do the experiment, make a very, very small batch of the coleslaw with a prepackaged cut cabbage, and then make a bigger batch with a whole head of cabbage, and you will see for yourself the huge difference, and that will sell you on the value of buying whole produce rather than prepackaged. There's no better way to understand the difference than to actually taste it yourself. So I'm going to be quiet right now. We're going to zip through this and I'm going to cut it all up. And if you ever watch my videos, you'll notice that I tend to like to use everything that I am making. So when I buy a whole head of cabbage, I'm going to use the whole head. I'm not going to put part of it back in the refrigerator. And I put it directly into this container. It's a 4 or 5 quart container. And so my cut cabbage will go directly into the container. And then after I mix the sauce, I'll pour the sauce on it. And then it will all go into the refrigerator. And it means my cleanup is very, very minimal. I won't have much left to do. So I'm just going to do that and be real quiet, and we'll get this done. Done. I put this on top, this lid. I'm going to close it. I'm going to put it in the refrigerator and it's going to rest overnight. Tomorrow I'll come back and videotape what happens because the yogurt and the acidic content and the sugar is going to start to ferment. The sugars from the cabbage will begin to ferment as well. Tomorrow the result will be quite sweet still because nothing has really fermented. You definitely want to keep this in the refrigerator. And with each passing day, your bacterial counts from your yogurt are going to rise as it continues to eat the sugar in the dates. And your acidity taste is going to increase. So the longer it stays in the refrigerator, the lower the sugar content and the more active your yogurt and the cultured product is. The longer it stays in the refrigerator, the more the taste is going to change and mutate. It will stay good for a very long time because it is a cultured product, but you don't want to keep it indefinitely. So I will be back tomorrow to show you what it looks like. The coleslaw has been sitting overnight in the refrigerator and I've pulled it back out this morning because I need to stir it up. Because as you can see in the corner here, there's it looks like water, and that is exactly what's normal. If you don't have this, don't be concerned, but if you do have it, do know that it's normal. And so you're just going to pull it out, and the coleslaw is very soft now. I didn't get all of it in there. As you can see, there's some parts that's still fresh from yesterday. So I'm just going to stir it up and get it more in there. And as you can see, it's really soft now. The parts that were marinating in this juice all night.